right, today is the very last full day of Donald Trump in office as President of the United States. And the big thing that we are expecting is a slew of pardons. And there is some news about who may get those pardons and how they have been gotten.
Yeah, it's all very above board. So here to discuss, Chuck Rocha. He's the president and founder of Solidarity Strategies, former senior advisor to Bernie Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign, and Henry Rogers. He's the Capitol Hill reporter for the Daily Caller. It's good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us remote and putting up with this. Good to see you.
No problem. Thanks.
All right. Henry, let me start with you. It's pretty interesting here. We got this report from the New York Times. Let's throw it up there on the screen. That apparently Rudy Giuliani told somebody it was going to cost them $2 million in order to buy him presenting a pardon before Trump. It's also not the only time of a Trump associate kind of cashing in here for pardon access. What do you make of all this? This kind of like scrambling of all the rats around Trump trying to sell their access as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, well, I think it was totally expected. Obviously, Obama was known for pardoning, nonviolent criminals when he left, a historic number of them. Trump is expected to pardon around 100, 50 to 100. I think, when he's leaving, I think today or tomorrow, he's planning on doing so. But the thing about Trump's pardons are all these people who he's pardoning are the people who caused a lot of trouble around him. It's like people who are being considered like Steve Bannon or Rudy Giuliani, like asking for this pardon, and other people, people who's already pardoned, Roger Stone. The list goes on. But my sources in the White House tell me that the pardon office is about the only office busy over there right now, and it's popping. And I just have to say, the one guy I am looking forward to getting a pardon, fingers crossed, is my guy, Lil Wayne. So let's see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck, and this is the thing with Trump is like, plenty of presidents have used their pardon powers in ways that were gross and corrupt. But he just takes it to that next level where, first of all, it's ultra blatant that these are people who are his ideological allies, who are, groveling at his feet. Steve Bannon now apparently is back in the circle and being considerate, et cetera. And then people around him are so grotesque and just feeling so out in the open and literally selling, like upfront, selling access to try to present a pardon to Trump. I do want to say there are people on this list that I would support as well. I know Alice Marie Johnson has been working to get some people who really are deserving of a pardon, who have had sentences that are way too long, outrageously so, for the crimes that they've committed. But a lot of this is just like super grotesque, blatant, out in the open swamp behavior.
Well, as the only person on this panel probably who has a past criminal record, I would love to get a pardon at some point in my life to clear my record. But now I realize that I can't even afford that. Like, I didn't realize I had to have that much money to get somebody to pardon me and clear my record for mistakes I made when I was a kid. Now, look, in all actuality, people should really think about what this reflective point is. As Crystal said, we expected this kind of behavior out of this president, but it lives long beyond that. And I agree with Crystal. There are people on this list that I would love to see pardoned as well. But let's be clear. He now has to go into a Senate trial. And if he does something really outlandish, and I think that's why there's been no more discussion about him pardoning himself or his kids, I think that's going to be reflective on the 7 or 8 or 9 senators that he would need to convict him in the Senate. So I think people need to be thinking about that, because his presidency may end tomorrow at noon. But if he does something really, really stupid and crazy, it could have a reflection on some moderate senators who are going to figure out if he can or cannot run for office again in 2024.
That's a good point. I mean, Henry, this is the interesting thing, which is we've recently seen that the idea of Trump pardoning himself, his pardoning his kids, pardoning people around him has nosedived in the last 24 hours, according to some of the reporting. We'll see whether that holds. He may change his mind. But the truth is Trump faces a lot of problems on the other side of tomorrow at 12:01 p.m. And we were reading in the Washington Post, there's an attorney with like 3 different lawsuits against him. The state attorney general in New York. I mean, you can't pardon your way out of a state crime. And they very much could go after his business. Already in New York City trying to cancel contracts with the Trump organization. Trump is going to be mired in millions of dollars in legal bills for probably the remainder of his life. And that has to be weighing on him pretty heavily now in the last day of his presidency.
100%. I mean, and that's why I think he's been sitting down with Jared and Ivanka and the rest of the crew, trying to work out a pardon for himself, or at least talk about it. Again, I'm not putting that off the table as of right now. I think the last thing that Trump wants is to walk out of there and be convicted in some way and be, have all these legal fees over his head, which is looking 100% likely. So, I think it's extremely interesting to see what's going to happen in the next 24 hours here. Will Kushner get pardoned? Will Jared Kushner get pardoned? Will Trump pardon himself? Will the family be let off the hook here? Technically, we'll see. And I think Chuck makes a good point. It puts a lot of pressure on the senator and Senate Republicans if he does decide to do that. So we'll see what happens here with the Biden administration, the Biden Senate. It's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah. And Chuck, at the same time, one very prominent name, someone I can certainly and many people consider to be a hero, Edward Snowden. Trump had sort of indicated maybe he was open to a Snowden pardon. I think it's fairly unlikely at this point, but God, you never know with this guy. But reporting is that former Attorney General Bill Barr, the one person that he argued against a pardon for was Edward Snowden. Just great.
Yeah, and I was reading that this morning, and I think it goes back to the original point, whether you were pro or con a Snowden pardon, is how these U.S. senators would take that, right, wrong, or indifferently. I think they probably have a strong opinion on that, and he does not want to ostracize the folks who are going to be determining. At a time when we're reflecting on all of these pardons, we should remember why this system was set up. Again, I made light of it in the beginning, but I've been through the criminal justice. There's a lot of people out there like myself who've turned their lives around, who deserve a pardon, who served long sentences, who did not deserve to for minimal crimes. And we should not be doing this to our criminal justice system when there are good people out there who have done their time, paid their price to society, and then come back to society and rebuilt their lives, much like I have, who deserve a pardon. And that's who we should be lifting up today and not thinking about these idiots out there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just want to say the Trump pardon that pissed me off the most was actually Michael Milken, who's one of the greatest financial criminals of all time. So he leaves us that legacy. All right, guys, stick with us. We'll have more Rising for everybody right after this.